This podcast contains adult themes and graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
A commercial-free version of this podcast is available on Patreon for $1 per month. Patreon.com/Beyond Contempt podcast. I'm Renee, and this is Beyond Contempt True Crime. You're listening to episode 37, The Wellnitz Family. Joseph Wellnitz married Elizabeth Preston in 1979 in Lexington, Kentucky. He was a veterinarian, and the couple moved to Adair County in 1981 to open a veterinary clinic. Joe and Beth worked as a team while he performed all the veterinary work and Beth managed the office. They were known and liked around the small farming community. They gained a reputation for being generous people, since Joe provided services to people who could not pay them. This was a second marriage for Joe and Beth. Beth had 2 kids from a previous marriage, Dennis and Meg, who both took the Wellnitz name. Joe had a great affection for these kids, even if they were not biologically his. Dennis Wellnitz was attending Somerset Community College and was living with his parents as he worked his way through school. Meg was attending Lexington Community College. On February 26, 1993, an intruder slipped into the Wellnitz family home in Columbia, Kentucky, and shot 50-year-old Joseph, 40-year-old Elizabeth, and 20-year-old Dennis Wellnitz. The police found no signs of forced entry, and the intruder spared no bullets, as over 10 shell casings were discovered. The residents of Adair County, which encompassed the city of Columbia, were upset as the murders seemed random and were senseless. For Columbia, Kentucky, population 4,500, a decade could slip by without a murder occurring. Some years there were no rapes, robberies, or assaults. Joe Wellnitz left the estate to his wife, Beth. Since she also passed away in the tragedy, Beth's mom, Mary Preston, was left with instructions for her to divide and provide resources to the Wellnitz children. With Dennis being found deceased in the shooting, they left most of the estate to 18-year-old Megan. But the Wellnitz property wasn't worth much, since the debts of the estate had to be paid out of the proceeds. A woman in the small Kentucky community named Dana King remembered spending time with Beth when she was a young girl. Beth asked her if she wanted to help wash a pony, and it thrilled Dana to be included. She thought that Joe and Beth were a wonderful couple, and she kept coming back to help them with odd jobs around the vet clinic. Dana married a veterinarian, and they bought the Wellnitz property and vet clinic. Unfortunately, they had to patch up a hole where one of the rounds was lodged into a door, and it was a reminder that the community suffered a great loss. Joe and Beth had taken out a life insurance policy for $500,000. The Mutual Life Insurance Company of New York refused to pay out the money because Meg was a suspect in the murder, so she sued the company. Eric Wellnitz was Joe's son from a previous marriage, and he sued for the money as well. They settled the lawsuits in April 1994. The money was given to a law firm and was paid out to both Meg and her half-brother Eric. The court system never reported what the money split was, but Eric said that he only received a small amount, and various print media stated that Meg received $300,000. Meg moved on and got married to Randy Appleton in 1995. The marriage produced one son who was born in 1997. The union did not last long, and the couple were estranged from one another by 1997 when they subsequently got divorced. Randy estimated that his ex-wife had a trust fund worth $190,000, plus her relatives gave her thousands of dollars in gifts after the murders. After community college, Meg attended the University of Kentucky in Lexington. Her major and graduation status remain unknown. She did study ceramics at Transylvania University and ran a bar called the Detour, which was a place where art was showcased. They identified Meg Wellnitz Appleton as a suspect early on, as well as a 20-year-old man named William Meese. Meese agreed to take a polygraph test for the Kentucky State Police. When he came in for the test, they asked him about the Wellnitz murders. He became so upset that he stopped the polygraph test and told them that he wanted a lawyer. Meg and William met at Lexington Community College. He then attended the University of Kentucky. Besides being a student, Meese had married young and wed a woman named Regina Meade in 1991. The marriage produced 3 children. Meg Wellnitz Appleton and William Meese remain suspects in the Wellnitz murders, but law enforcement could never produce enough evidence for a grand jury trial. Therefore, the case went cold for almost 10 years. But law enforcement was patient. They waited and watched. Romantic relationships sometimes compromise the morality of the person who has partnered with an offender. When that relationship sours, it opens the door for law enforcement to step in and convince that ex-partner to give them vital evidence. And this is what brought down William Meese, and eventually Meg Wellnitz Appleton as well. Meese's relationship with his wife ended in divorce in late 2002. Police saw their opportunity and asked Regina Meade if she would be willing to give them the information they had been seeking for the last decade. Regina agreed. She said her ex-husband and Meg Wellnitz Appleton told her about the murders several weeks after they took place. On the night of the murders, Regina remembers that she, her husband William Meese, Meg, and Meg's boyfriend Randy Appleton, who eventually became her husband, were up late playing cards. Randy Appleton left around 1:30 a.m. Regina was in the bedroom when Meese came upstairs to tell her that he and Meg were going to grab some coffee. There was evidence that Meg bought gas at a BP right before 2:30 a.m. Regina recalled that Meg and Meese woke her up sometime around 6:30 or 7 a.m. and brought with them a small safe. Approximately 2 months later, Regina claimed that Meese and Wellnitz Appleton told her the full story about where they got the safe and what happened that night. After the murders, Meese threw his bloody clothes and gun into a dumpster. The safe belonged to Joe and Beth Wellnitz, and Regina believed the safe had been opened and emptied before they brought it into her home. Meese made a key for it, and Regina started using the safe. After she gave her statement to police, Regina turned the safe over to them. They found a single strand of hair, which was similar to the hair of Joe Wellnitz, and linked the safe to the crime scene. Law enforcement did not charge Regina with a crime since she was willing to testify against her ex-husband. The Kentucky State Police had another idea. They wanted to plant one of their female undercover officers at Meese's place of employment and see if they could get him to talk about the Wellnitz murders. Officer K.D. Felice was planted at True Green Chemlawn, and William Meese was her trainer. They spent hours riding around to house calls, and Felice crafted a false narrative about wanting to kill her abusive husband to see if she could get Meese to bite. Felice was wearing a wire and collected approximately 60 hours of conversations with Meese. She captured decent information from him, which revealed the type of person Meese was and what he was capable of. He told the undercover officer things like, if someone sent the U.S. Marshals after him, he would send back their bodies. And he was not a pleasant person and just knows how to kill people. And he was a good liar. Could do it with a straight face, and he wouldn't feel bad. In his cubicle back at the office, there was a shooting target of a picture of a human with over 24 bullet holes in the upper body. Meese dry-fired the pistol at Felice and let her know that the holes in that target came from the gun he was holding. Meese told his new trainee that if she wanted to commit a murder, start by not buying the gun in her own name so she couldn't be traced. He told her to approach her husband when he was least expecting it, then put 2 shots into his body and 1 into his head. Mies told Felice to watch her husband for a few minutes to ensure that he was dead. Then, she was to wash her hands, place the gun in a plastic bag, and toss the gun into a dumpster in a place like Arby's. The plastic bag would look like all the other ones tossed into the garbage, and she wouldn't have to take the gun to the dump. Mies told her to toss her clothes away as well, to get rid of all the physical evidence. He said to act like nothing happened after her husband was dead and remind herself that it wasn't a big deal. The undercover officer asked him if he saw the bodies. He wasn't sure what she was referring to, so he clarified if she meant the bodies of the Wellnitz family. The undercover officer regeneralized the question and asked about the bodies of whoever. Mies said that he had seen bodies before. The officer wanted to know what type of expression they had on their faces. Mies said that they were mostly shocked. The undercover assignment ended because Mies kept coming onto Officer Felice, who kept rejecting him. Ironically, Mies was upset that she pushed away his advances, so he called the Lexington police to tell them that his coworker was planning the murder of her husband. On February 27, 2003, they gave indictments to both William Mies and Meg Wellnitz Appleton. They were charged with murder, burglary, and robbery of Joe, Beth, and Dennis Wellnitz. They specifically charged Mies with 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of complicity to commit murder, 1 count of first-degree robbery, 1 count of first-degree burglary, 1 count of complicity in robbery, and 1 count of complicity in burglary. Wellnitz Appleton was charged with 3 counts of complicity to commit murder, 1 count of complicity to commit both robbery and burglary. The residents of Columbia, Kentucky, were deeply wounded when they found out that a family member, and not a stranger, perpetrated the murders. It was clear to the state of Kentucky that the motivation for this crime was money. It was suspected that Wellnitz Appleton received $300,000 out of the $500,000 policy after they paid her half-brother his portion. Then Mies was also given a cut to perform all the dirty work. They arrested William Mies at the Fayette County Detention Center, since he was already convicted for agreeing to murder someone's boyfriend for $2,000. When he accepted the down payment of $500 on November 3, 2002, he didn't realize that money was handed to him by an undercover officer. He received a 12-year sentence. Mies had been in a difficult financial situation where he was only earning $300 per week and had over $14,000 in debts, which were mostly comprised of student loans. His estranged ex-wife, Regina Meade, claimed that Mies raped her on Christmas Eve in 1999, but those charges never stuck. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. Hi, everyone. I really need to tell you about BetterHelp Online Counseling. It's an affordable service where you can connect with one of their licensed professional therapists. You can find counselors that specialize in just about anything, including anxiety, depression, family conflicts, trauma, and LGBTQ issues. I work from home and barely leave my house, so it's great that you can communicate with your counselor from the privacy of your own home. BetterHelp is more affordable than traditional in-person counseling, and financial aid is available. So many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states, and you can start talking with your counselor in less than 24 hours. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/beyondcontempt. Join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's betterhelp.com/beyondcontempt. And now, back to the show. Mies agreed to plead guilty and testify against Meg Wellnitz Appleton. William Mies's trial was originally to be held on November 15, 2004, but it was delayed with an impending confession. He gave law enforcement 2 videotaped accounts on November 15th and on December 15th. Mies said the planning of the murders started in December 1992. Wellnitz Appleton both encouraged him and assisted him in committing the crime when she bought the gun with a fake ID. He gave her money from his tax return, but claimed that he did not accompany her when she bought the 9mm gun from Sports Unlimited in Lexington, Kentucky. Mies said that she gave him that money back when she paid his bond when he was arrested for another crime. He said that she provided him with the house key, so he had a simple way to get into the Wellnitz home. Mies did his best to implicate his ex-wife, Regina Meade, when he claimed that Meg and Regina both drove to the Wellnitz home and stayed in the car when he committed the murders in the early morning hours of February 26, 1993. However, the prosecution determined that Regina had little to no involvement in the crime. Mies entered the Wellnitz home around 4 a.m. and walked into a back room where he thought Joe and Beth would be. They weren't there, so he went back through the house and he realized that someone was in the bathroom. Mies opened fire on the person who turned out to be Joe Wellnitz. Joe continued to move towards Mies, but Mies continued to fire at him until he fell to the ground. Mies walked upstairs and continued to the end of the hall. Beth was standing up next to her bed, probably startled by all the gunshots that were fired in her home. Mies fired on Beth and she fell to the floor. When Mies went back down the hallway, he had to figure out how to open the bedroom door. It wasn't typical, and instead of pulling it open, Mies had to slide it to the side. Dennis Wellnitz was sitting on his bed, and Mies unloaded the rest of the rounds from his gun, dropped the empty clip, and reloaded a new one. Dennis was still alive and sitting on his bed, and Mies ordered him to the floor. He complied, and Mies shot him in his back. Mies grabbed the empty clip and slid it into his pocket. He went through the home and found the bedroom that contained the small firebox safe. Mies grabbed it on the way out the door because Wellnitz Appleton told him that there might be $1,000 inside of it. The deal Mies struck with the state was he would avoid the death penalty and accept life without parole, plus get an extended visit with all his children. When Mies had the visitation with his kids, he was not happy. He said the visit had been delayed and it had ended sooner than promised, so he moved to withdraw his guilty plea. Mies told the court that his confessions were false. He said that he has been a liar all his life, and he made everything up. It was just a defense mechanism he used because he was picked on as a kid. Mies even told people that he worked for the CIA and had been a Navy SEAL. In reality, Mies did not care for one of his attorneys, and he thought pleading guilty and recanting was a path to getting assigned a new lawyer. The judge ordered a competency evaluation, but Mies was of sound mind to recant his confession and face a criminal trial. So he did get a new lawyer, but the prosecution couldn't wait to play his confessions at his trial. Meg Wellnitz Appleton pleaded guilty to the 3 counts of complicity to murder her entire family, and she also agreed to testify against Mies. In return, they gave her life in prison without parole for at least 25 years and took the death penalty off the table. Wellnitz Appleton gave her statement to police on December 31, 2004. Some of the details of her story slightly differed from Mies's account, as would be expected. Wellnitz Appleton said that the idea initially emerged as a game because prior to the murders, the parents of their friend were going on a trip to Africa. So Wellnitz Appleton and her friends had a joke about how much money she could collect if her parents died while on a vacation. The plan went from being a morbid joke to a reality when Wellnitz Appleton befriended Mies, who wanted to start a commune, and he thought the Wellnitz property would be perfect. He never realized his dream because they sold the Wellnitz property to pay for the debts that the estate owed. Wellnitz Appleton claimed that she wavered on the plan to kill her parents, but claimed that Regina Meade was the one who encouraged her to follow through. Regina denied this claim. Wellnitz Appleton bought the gun with a fake ID, since neither she nor Mies was 21 years old. The name on the fake ID was April Bagley. She went to college with April, who gave Wellnitz Appleton a copy of her Social Security card and birth certificate. The intended use of the fake ID was for underage drinking. Wellnitz Appleton took these documents down to the DOT, who issued her a license under April's name. This fake license also effectively served her purposes when she bought the 9mm pistol from the sporting goods store without issue. Meg Wellnitz Appleton was sleeping with Mies prior to the murders. Beth Wellnitz found out her daughter was seeing a married man and was immediately unhappy with those decisions. Wellnitz Appleton took Mies to meet her mom, and this was when he got a viewing of the layout of the house. He murdered the Wellnitz family not long after. On January 25, 2005, Wellnitz Appleton was sentenced to at least 25 years without parole. When the judge asked her if she had anything to say, her answer was, "No, sir." When it came time for Wellnitz Appleton to testify at Mies's trial in 2006, she recanted her story. She said that there was never a plan to harm her family, and she and Mies were studying for a test that night. Then they fed her cats and got coffee in Lexington at the time the murders took place. Wellnitz Appleton said when she originally confessed on December 31, 2004, it was because she was high on Seroquel and wanted to avoid the death penalty. She made up a confessional narrative based on her reading of the prosecution's discovery materials. Mies testified at his own trial and said he was studying with Wellnitz Appleton the night the murders took place. He, too, claimed his confession was based on discovery materials provided by the prosecution. The jury didn't buy Mies's recantation and claim of innocence. They decided he was guilty. On September 18, 2006, as the judge read the jury's recommendation that Mies be sentenced to death, his face elicited no response, and his mother wilted in a flood of emotion. The defense tried to put William Mies's tough childhood on display to help explain to the jury why he made poor decisions. He never knew his violent father because his mother, Jan Mies, took him and left. Jan Mies was unstable, so she dropped her 1-year-old son off at her mom's house and took off. His grandmother legally adopted him, so she was technically his mother, and his mother was now his sister. The grandmother unfortunately died when William was only 12. Jan Mies picked up her son and moved him from Florida to Lexington. Instead of telling him she was his mother, she maintained her role as sister. Jan's paranoia worsened, and she kept William out of school because she didn't want him speaking with other people. As a result, he became a loner. Later on, Jan received diagnoses for her mental problems, which included hearing voices that told her to kill people. She believed that William also heard voices, but couldn't get him to admit it. William dropped out of high school and instead completed his GED, then attended community college, followed by university. He had a lot of entry-level jobs working in fast food, lawn care, pest control, and taxi driving. Mies was struggling as a divorced father of 3 young children. The prosecution believed that if there was ever an individual that deserved the death penalty, it was William Mies. He planned the crime and took the Wellnitz family by surprise in their own home. When he unloaded several rounds into Dennis, and Dennis didn't die, he ordered him onto the floor, reloaded his gun, and put 3 more shots into his back and 1 into his head. He also shot Joe and Beth several times. On October 20th, 2006, the judge accepted the jury's recommendation of the death penalty for William Mies and made him the 37th inmate on Kentucky's death row. They also gave Mies 20 years for the burglary and 20 years for the robbery. When Mies was given an opportunity to make a statement, he pulled out a 5-page paper and began reading. He said that he did not kill the Wellnitz family, and all parties testifying against him were telling lies, including his ex-wife, Regina. Mies compared the court system in Kentucky to that of Nazi Germany, Communist China, and Soviet Russia. He said that a fair trial was no longer a possibility in America. At the end of his 5-page diatribe, he finished with a prayer in Hebrew and English. Mies asked God to show the police, the prosecution, the court, and all the witnesses who testified against him mercy. The judge had the last word and told Mies that there was no doubt that he committed the crimes, and he would not grant him a new trial or give him a lesser sentence. The defense filed many appeals, but most were denied. His death sentence was upheld by the Kentucky Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court passed on taking his case. Meese was victorious with one appeal that was decided by the upper courts, and they declared his trial judge failed to make an appropriate ruling regarding letting him have ongoing visitation with his children. The trial judge had stated that visitation with Meese would endanger the children's emotional, mental, and physical health. The court ordered that the trial judge grant visitation rights, and his ex-wife's father volunteered to take the kids to see him in prison once per month. Meese was not allowed to leave the Special Security Unit to worship at the Institutional Religious Center. Since he was a death row inmate, he was a security risk, and the Kentucky State Penitentiary would not allow it. In 2007, Meese sued the prison because he felt they were violating the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act. Praying in a small cell was not tolerable, and the prison had rules against covering up the toilet area. Meese felt that he should be allowed to go to the prison's chapel with other Jewish prisoners on Sabbath Friday night until sundown Saturday. The judge ruled Meese could cover up the toilet area with a sheet so he could pray in his cell. He was allowed to join the Roman Catholic death row prisoners for Thursday service or the Sunday service with the Protestant inmates. Meese released a statement to the press. "I'll die or get killed rather than follow the state's rules. Aren't you proud of your tax dollars at work? Emotionally, it deprives even that basic spiritual recharge, and I fight on." He, of course, reiterated his innocence to the media. "I did not murder the Wellnitz family." Meese also sued the prison for not providing him a kosher diet. The lawsuit stated that he was born Jewish and was a member of the Reformed Jewish Synagogue in Lexington. The prison said that he was being denied kosher food because he wasn't choosing to eat that diet 100% of the time. Meese received his first warning in October 2015. He had ordered chili and claimed that this did not violate the definition of kosher. A few months later, he ate a chicken from Sam's Club that was not marked kosher and was kicked out of the program. In his lawsuit, Meese explained that eating only kosher is something intrinsic to Orthodox Jews. He was a Reformed Jew, and it was acceptable to remain kosher by avoiding shellfish and pork, or by not consuming meat and dairy in the same sitting. A rabbi from a Reformed synagogue in Louisville, Kentucky, affirmed Meese was correct in his explanation of kosher for Reformed Jews. The prison system tried to limit the number of inmates who take part in the kosher program because of the increased cost and the rampant fraud. They reported that thousands of inmates pretend to be Jewish so they can get better food on this program. The kosher meals cost $1,913 per year for each inmate, as compared to $1,113 per year per inmate for the standard prison diet. Prisoners also pretend to be Jewish to extract money from Jewish aid groups. Kentucky's Kosher Diet Participation Agreement was instituted in 2008, and prisoners must agree to not purchase, possess, or consume any foods not permitted on their religious diet, and that was why Meese was booted from the program. Where are they now? Meg Wellnitz Appleton was serving her time in the Kentucky Correctional Institute for Women in the Pewee Valley. Prison staff found her deceased in her cell in February 2014 from an apparent suicide. William Meese remains on death row in Kentucky State's Penitentiary. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Beyond Contempt. Please visit beyondcontemptpodcast.com for the links to the sources and the music used in this episode. Research, writing, editing, audio production, and music scoring were performed by me. Thank you to new patrons, Colleen W. and Sabrina G. I appreciate you supporting the show. Sabrina, if you're interested in receiving a sticker, please send me your address through the Patreon system. And if you like the show, please leave me a favorable review in Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, everyone.